Spoštovane gledalke, spoštovani gledalci, dobrodošli v prav posebni oddaji na Nova 24 TV. Nocoj se bom pogovarjal z gostom, ki prihaja iz daljne Indonezije. Je poslanec indonezijske stranke za narodno prebojenje in član organizacije sredinskih demokratov, pa tudi generalni sekretar največje samostojne islamske organizacije na svetu, Nahdlatul Ulama. Mr. Kh.yahya Halal Staquf, welcome to Slovenia and of course welcome to our studio.
My pleasure, thank you.
Tell me firstly about your organization. What does this name Nahdlatul Ulama actually means? What is also the goal of your organization, and what do you as a Secretary General aim to achieve? Firstly for Indonesia and then of course in the wider region.
Nahdlatul Ulama is an Arabic name. It means the awakening of the Muslim scholars, which are the traditional community leaders in our society, Indonesian society. And it was established in 1926 as an effort to consolidate the community leadership in our society, to work together, strive together for an ideals of future civilization for our country. And since we have Islam as our fundamental inspiration, then it is natural that we need to also work throughout the Islamic world, and due to the reality of our current civilization, we simply have to work to the rest with the rest of the world.
You have been criticized many times in your home country. Your opponents say that you are not Muslim enough, that you are preaching Islam that isn't really Islam. How do you respond to those critics? Is your agenda well received in Indonesia?
Yeah, you see, we've been living this Islam, our Islam, for like 500 years at least, you know. So, and also our leaders take their religious education from all over Islamic world, from Hijaz, meaning Mecca and Medina, from Azhar in Egypt, from Damascus, from Baghdad, from everywhere. So we have all the line of education from masters to masters to masters, you know, until the Prophet himself. So it's simply it's not logical to accuse us to be not Islamic enough. You know.
You say that Islam can be reformed, that Islam can be more humane, more egalitarian. But doesn't that actually mean changing Islam, creating a new religion? Iran had liberal Islam in the 70s, if we remember this. So did Egypt. But those two countries now practice an extremely fundamental Islam. What can you do so that your Reformation movement does not end in fundamentalist revolution?
Yeah, what we need is a vision about a future civilization for us all. So Islam was meant to be a guidance for human beings to achieve well-beings from themselves, for themselves. So what happened in the Middle East is a historical passage that bring them into the situation that they have now. But actually, we have a different historical passage in Indonesia that enable us to see a different vision about future civilization, which is a harmonious civilization among various different religious community, like what we have in Indonesia.
What about Sharia? It is a legal code not to be broken, but if I understand correctly, it is applied only partially in Indonesia. Why is that so, and what does it mean exactly?
This is the common, you know, the broad misunderstanding about Sharia. Sharia is not supposed to be something abstract or even utopian. Sharia has to be something concrete, because the definition of Sharia is the guidance for human beings to achieve well-beings. So it has to be concrete, it has to be realistic, it has to be, to be seen as a fact. When you do something that in fact against your well-being, then you are against Sharia. So that's the true understanding about Sharia, I think.
You have actually become known for being one of few Muslim representatives to go to Israel and work for peace between Jews and Muslims. Do you think that while Hamas is saying that all Jews must die, peace is at all possible? Can two sides who are constantly in war actually shake hands?
See, the way I see it, the problem is not just between Hamas and Likud. It's not just between Palestinian and the Israelis. It's about the whole global community. Because all, the conflicts between the Palestinians and the Israelis has been, having broad ramification to the global society. So it is for the whole global society to work together in seeking solution for the problem in Palestine. So, and we have to work from the most fundamental root of the conflict, which is interaction between religions, between different religious communities, the Jews, the Muslims, the Christians. The way I see it, there has been an established mindset and behavior, mode of behavior among different religious communities there in that particular regions, which is based on enmity toward each other. We need to change that.
Your words about Middle Age interpretations of Quran and Hadiths are actually very interesting. But do you believe that fundamental principles of Islam can really be interpreted differently? There is a joke in the West going something like, Islam is the religion of peace, but only if all people in the world are Muslims. So what do you say?
See, again, like I said, it's about historical passage. What happened in Middle East is due to the historical passage that's been through. They've been interpreting Islam the way they did because in response to the historical reality that they encounter. So we can have a different mode of interpretation. And it's, in fact, it is possible because we did it in Indonesia. We actually did it in Indonesia. We have a different mode of interpretation about Islam. We managed to develop a peaceful, harmonious society with a very heterogeneous manner, with all different religious communities living together.
Thank you. Mr. Kh.yahya, if you bring people from outside into Europe, is it not logical to try to understand how these people think? Could they also bring problems with them? Many migrants, for example, that are coming to Europe were absolutely happy living under ISIS.
That's it. That's why I was talking about your capacity to cope with the problem. You need to have a clear understanding, comprehensive understanding about the nature of the problem, including the mindset of these people. Because it's not just about the economy. It's not just about adding some number of people into, larger numbers of people in your society. It's about adding some people with a different culture or different mindset, maybe problematic mindset and mentality. You have to think about the strategy to cope with that problem.
So this is probably a fundamental question. If you know the problem, you know how to fight.
Yes, yes.
You represent the good model of civilization that accommodates different people. How do you fight back your opponents' radical Islam? You have those problems in Indonesia.
See, this is why our leaders in the past established the organization, the Nahdlatul Ulama. Because this problem is not new to us. It's been coming to us over and over and over for centuries. And we've been fighting to preserve our harmonious civilization against this element of threat. So we established Nahdlatul Ulama as instrument to raise social movement, to achieve social consensus, to deal with the problem. That we don't want Indonesia to be destroyed by these supremacists, segregative, ideas and groups. So we fight back through social movement and through any means that we have in hands to raise a campaign against this threat.
There is another very important question that we have to answer. Is Islamic State authentic Islamically?
Yeah, like I said, there is a medieval mode of interpretation about Islam. And what ISIS is doing is trying to impose that medieval mode of interpretation, which is obviously then become disastrous to our current global society and civilization. So that's why we've been calling for a reform in Islam. Reform means recontextualization. We call for Islamic world to realize the changing reality that we have now in our current civilization, and then come back to the fundamental purpose of Islam as a religion, which is to guide human beings to achieve their well-beings. So that's why, you see, this medieval mode of interpretation has been challenging us, Indonesian Muslims, all this time. And we've been fighting back, dealing with it. But as this is something global in nature, we believe that we need a more global consolidation to fight this.
But how do you reform Islam? Is that really possible?
It's possible because we did it. We actually did it. In Indonesia, we have a vast majority of Muslims with a very deep-rooted tradition and culture, who has mentality of harmonious life among different groups of religion in Indonesia. See? So, and we developed a theological discourse, a legitimate theological discourse for it. So, and if I may, I can explain that last year we conduct this international conference with various Muslim scholars from around the world in Indonesia. Coming to Indonesia, we convened them, and as the result of the conference, we declare what we call Declaration on Humanitarian Islam, which means Islam that serves the well-being of humanity. And we're talking about recontextualizing Islam, a strategy to recontextualize Islam. And we laid out 5 components of strategy. First, identification and contentment. So we need to honestly identify what is the problem. We need to acknowledge that what ISIS is doing is to impose the medieval mode of interpretation, which is problematic to our current civilization. We need to admit that ISIS have a legitimate references in the eye of Islamic orthodoxy, so that we can come to a logic that we need to change that. So secondly, we need a conflict resolution, because all these conflicts involving different religious groups has been used as justification for enmity, to preserve the idea of enmity. We need to do that. Third, we need to generate alternative discourse on Islamic theology, which we did in Indonesia. So that we can have a theological discourse that will encourage Muslims to have more harmonious life with different religious groups. Then we need educational reform. In the Islamic educational institutions, this will have to do with curriculum, with the method, and so forth. And the first component is social movement. That's what we do. That's what Nahdlatul Ulama does. We do social movement to consolidate the society, to move against this threat of radicalism.
Kh.yahya, we are at the end of our short conversation. You have taken steps to ensure more peaceful coexistence of humans. Can globalist elites and geopolitical superpowers also make some steps that we prevent large-scale conflicts, wars, famine?
That's why I'm here. I try to reach out to people everywhere. That's why I came to Jerusalem. That's why I have works in the United States and everywhere in the world, because we need to speak with all these world leaders that we have a civilizational problem here. We need to work together to solve it.
We will continue with our interesting conversation a little bit later. Zdaj, dame in gospodje, so na vrsti reklame. Ostanite z nami. Spoštovani gledalci, spoštovane gledalke, dobrodošli nazaj. Nocoj v studiu gostim gospoda Jahjo Khalila Staqufa. V drugem delu oddaje bova spregovorila tudi o ekstremizmu in pa terorizmu. Mr. Yahya, in Indonesia you have radical Islam. How do you deal with these problems?
See, Islam has been the fundamental elements in our civilization, Indonesian civilization, even since before Indonesia as a state emergence. Yeah. So, what we've been developing in our civilization is a harmonious society with its diversity. So, but now we are living in an open world where influence from everywhere can come in and influence the society, including this problem of radicalism and terrorism. So our attitude about this problem is first to preserve our civilization. This is a problem that pose dangers to our civilization. So our attitude is to protect our civilization. That's first. And second, because we are seeing this to be a global problem, then we need to consolidate globally to ask for global society to work together to solve this problem to the root. So that's why we've been calling for an honest conversation about this problem.
Indonesia is also the biggest Muslim country in the world. How can you lead an example for other countries where Islam is predominant religion?
It's not just about leading, See, people have to see the reality, the fact. It is obvious, nobody can deny that Islam is now facing a problem, because the whole world is concerned about how Middle East, about the dynamics in Middle East and where it's going to, you know. So now, you know, we need to work not just to save Islam, you know, not just to solve the problem with Islam, but also to preserve our global civilization from destruction because of this problem.
Kh.Yahya, you are helping in many programs to re-educate terrorists, to prevent future terrorism. What is the first step to prevent outbursts of violence and hatred? Religion plays its role. Every attacker in Europe died with Allahu Akbar on his lips.
See, basically, the way we see it, what we need is a reform, is a contextualization of Islamic teachings. What these terrorists have in their mindset about Islam is against this middle age mode of interpretation. We need to make them realize the changing reality that we have now, and that Islam should adjust, you know, because Islam is supposed to contribute to the well-being of humanity. It's just inconceivable to see Islam as a source of destruction. How can you have faith in a religion that is in fact become a source of problem to humanity? So if you see Islam in a way that can pose a threat to humanity, then it's supposed to be a wrong Islam that you understand, you know.
How do those terrorist attacks in Europe, there have been many in the last couple of years, affect you? Are you hurt by these attacks in the name of a religion?
Yeah, they did the attacks not just in Europe, they did it in Indonesia also. It's also a real threat to our society. So, again, this is for us all, the global community to tackle. And it's not just, you cannot, you know, European, for example, or Americans cannot outsource, you know, the solution of this problem to Islamic world. No, because it concerns you. Because this problem, you know, has impact to your security, your future. So you have all the right to engage and determine the result.
Your agenda for living together in harmony is well accepted in the West. What about more fundamental Muslim leaders? Could you preach your ideals in, let's say, Iran, for example, or in Qatar or Somalia?
Yeah, again, basically, fundamentally, what we need is an honest conversation, a clear understanding about what the reality is, so that they can realize what future they can expect, you know. So if they can come to this objective, clear vision about the reality of the future, then hopefully, you know, we can find a way to solve this problem. But it also needs, in a practical way, it needs political wills from every direction, from the West and from the leaders in the Islamic world, you know, to achieve a better interaction, a better, a more harmonious world for us all.
What is it that boys and men, migrants coming from those radicalized countries in Africa or Middle East have to hear, have to learn to live peacefully with us here in Europe?
Well, what do they come for? They come for to find opportunity for a better future. Then they have to. It is also their responsibility to preserve everything that is good here in Europe. They're not supposed to pose any threat to the European society, you know, because it is the generosity of the European society to take them. That's one thing. And the other side, the European society should think about their capacity to take problems. Because these are problems. You take problematic people or people from problematic regions to come into your society, So you need to think about your capacity to cope with the problem, And when you calculate for your capacity, you need a clear and accurate understanding about the nature of the problem you are facing.
Mr. Yahya, why is that in mosques across Europe, those migrants many times become even more radicalized? Some imams even want to destroy Europe and not live in harmony. What is happening in those mosques?
See, we have these political circles in Middle East who have the interest in using Islam as political weapons for so-called soft power for them. So this circle of political powers have the interest to radicalize people. So now we need to make them realize that they cannot continue this. They have to stop, because they're not just doing it in Europe. You see, they're doing it also in Indonesia. And the reason why many Muslim countries, are facing disastrous situation, even become a failed state, is because of this, because of the radicalization.
Europe cannot take in all of Africa and Levant. Indonesia is a successful country. What can be done in Africa to develop industry and agriculture so that people don't have to migrate illegally, so that they can live in their own countries?
Yeah, you see, one major, not everything, but one major element of this is politics. So we have to deal with first the political leadership in Middle East and Africa. And second, we can see that religion is also one major element in this problem. That means we need to deal with the religious authority also. So we have to find a strategy to consolidate, to develop a consensus, a societal consensus about what needs to be done.
Christianity only teaches love and compassion. Why is that, in your opinion, that so many times Christianity is a target?
See, again, it's about historical passage, You have Europe, and, it was like more than 500 years Europe engaged in a conflict, a military conflict against the Islamic world, the Turk Ottomans in the past, for example. So it's been there, and it's only, maybe just 100 years it ended with World War I. So it's the mindset, the mentality, the psychology is still there. Now we need to make these people realize about a different future that we can have by living harmoniously.
So that's your opinion, the main reason, if I understood correctly, that terrorists attack Christmas markets, churches, priests. For example, if they wanted to attack a state, nuclear power plant would be probably a better target. But no, they attack symbols.
Yeah, because their mindset is just it's not just about political entity. It's about different groups. So they attack whatever they can reach to attack.
West, of course, has bloody hands too. There is no doubt about it. Humans have done terrible things. But there is always someone who says that crimes are will of God. Do gods demand killing?
Well, who knows what God demands, the way we see it, the way I learn from Islam, I'm a Muslim, the way I learn from Islam is that God provides us with guidance to achieve well-beings, that's it.
Christian God does not. Buddha does not. Some young terrorists think that Allah wants them to kill, to go to jihad. How do you answer them?
They have to achieve a clear understanding about the history that they've been through, that all this mindset, all this mentality is a result of a historical experience. So now it is for our decision, for us to decide what kind of future that we want to be.
Kh.Yahya, thank you for your time and
Welcome.
your interesting answers.
Thank you.
Hvala pa tudi vam, spoštovane gledalke in gledalci, za pozornost. Želim vam prijeten preostanek večera in lahko noč.